Book titled Everyday Life and Nationalist, Credo, an ethnographic study of Naga identity authored by Dr. Heroka K. Yeptomi, Professor St. Joseph University, was released today by the MP Lok Sabha Tokheho Yeptomi at St. Joseph University in Chumukidima. The author is the Assistant Professor at St. Joseph University Sociology Department. Speaking at the book launch as the special guest, Yeptomi, while congratulating the author, stressed on how Nagas should progress and move forward economic independence to sustain the state's economy.
Actually, the book starts with my PhD long time back. You know, the underlining theme of the book starts there. You know, it's the ideas was born there only. But then as the year goes by, as the days goes by, I also rethink about my thesis. I have made a lot of changes also. It's a byproduct of my thesis, basically. And during these times, but one thing that I want to say and talk about is when I was doing a research, I went to Twinsang, I went to Mukokchung, Kohima, Zuneboto, and in between these districts, I have met a lot of people, rich people, poor people, educated people, you know, all types of people I have met in my way. And I have spoken to them, interacted with them. And I think Nagas are very wonderful people in many ways. They are very hospitable as it is. And they are all happy, they are very critical of our Naga movements, all of this. And those are genuine. You know, it's not only true, but it's genuine. And I do really appreciate. But in the midst of all these discussions, debate, and talks, there is also a sort of very sad part about the Naga society, and that is violence. Violence after signing of the ceasefire agreement in '97. I think my suspect is that violence have become very, very sophisticated. You know, sophisticated, not complicated, but sophisticated. And these sophistication, I don't mean the AK-47, you know. That part, I don't need to talk about because many people have talked about it. The AK-47 part, I'm not talking about. But there is another kind of violence that is pervaded deep in our Naga society. And this is a violence that is not, we cannot see this violence. We cannot just catch hold of this violence. But this violence is deep down. And this violence is, you know, what I would like to talk about this Galton, sociologist, peace and conflict resolution scholar, Galton, a Norwegian sociologist and a scientist, social scientist. He talks about three kinds of violence. That is the structural violence, the direct violence, structural violence, cultural violence. In between, there is a institutionalized violence. And direct violence is something that is intentional, you know, it's an intentional. But what I observe in our society as Nagas is not a direct violence after the ceasefire agreement. This direct violence, the AK-47, we did not hear the AK-47. Mind you, I myself, when I was studying in Edin boarding school, Arnato, during those times, in 90s, we heard a gun sound. You know, we were terrified. Tomorrow our friends would come to the college, schools, and then they would tell the stories about how the two persons who was killed by the firing squad in Arnato, you know, on the way to Rivshe Road. they would tell us, and we would be excited to hear about it. It was exciting not because it is a good story, but it was a terrible story. That's why we were excited to hear. You know? But that story is over. There is another very sophisticated kind of violence that is there in our society, and that is the structural violence. That is a violence that we cannot see, but that is present there. You know, if you go to the government hospitals, I am sure you will see that there are thousands of people who die regularly out of a preventable disease. You know, not unavoidable disease, but preventable disease, I'm sure. There are too many people. There are those people who are dying because of hunger. We say that these people are lazy people, so they are hungry, they are dying. You know, we tend to just put a blanket over it. But these are, in one way or other ways, it is a creation of all of us. It is not because of people, but it is because it is in one way or other way, indirectly, unintentional violence. This is a violence committed by nobody and a violence committed by everybody. And this is pervading everywhere. I am very much impressed, and I'm a great follower and I'm a great believer of Mahatma Gandhi, whose passive resistance, non-violent resistance, I'm a great believer of him. He says that poverty is the greatest evil in this world. It is the greatest violence. He says, he did not say that AK-47 is the greatest violence. He says poverty is the greatest violence. And this is something that is there in our society. I don't mean literally someone cannot eat for the next meal, but there is a poverty in our minds, poverty in everything. Materially, spiritually, physically, and emotionally, sometimes we can be so much people with poverty. And these are direct results of our society. We are also a contributor to that thing. So when I start thinking about this, I become passionate of this. So, but do excuse me. And so these things, in a way, affects many of us. The way we think, our politics is shaped by this. Our spiritual life is also shaped by this. Our ethical is also shaped by this. If I say this, some of you might mind. But AK-47, I'm telling you, is neither ethical nor unethical. It is the forces behind that AK-47 that makes whether it is an ethical or unethical. In fact, it is one of the most beautifully created machines for the glorious ideas. But it is the forces that behind that makes it good and bad. Anything, we have everything in our hands. Everything. The way we intellect, even our intellect is a part of that. Even our education is also a part of that. If we learned the right ways, we can be a good human beings. Ultimately, the purpose of education is to make us human being first. Human being first. And then all the rest. But sometimes our education is also not giving us that space to be a human beings. And this is why this book is basically a rethinking about all these aspects, the nitty-gritty of this. You will read the book, you will understand it. I'm sure some might have also read it. I'm afraid if someone has read it already, but you will see it. And I am hoping that you will read it and you enjoy it. This book is meant to be enjoyed, So please read it and enjoy it. You can always give a critical comments. I love critical comments. I love someone giving a critical comments to me. I'm very much welcoming that. So read it and enjoy this book. And it will be very good if you could share it to your friends. family members, and things like that. So that is one thing, that is all what I will say about the book. I thought of reading out from the book a small passage. So I want to read it out from the second chapter, okay? Just 2 or 3 paragraph. Journey into the New Nationalism. Michael Ignatieff states that modern nationalism is a language of blood, a call to arms that can end in the horror of ethnic cleansing. Nationalism came to be viewed in such a fashion after the fall of Berlin Wall in 1989, the disintegration of Soviet Union. It was followed by the violent ethnic nationalist expressions in the form of ethnic cleansing among the ethnic groups of former Yugoslavia. Under that time, many ethnic groups around the world experienced brutal conflict, violence of ethnic nationalism. In former Yugoslavia, the violent nationalist clash between the Serbia and the Croatians based on ethnicity, the bloody armed conflict in the northeast India, the Sinhalese and the Tamils in Sri Lanka, the Hutus and the Tutsi in Africa, and some few examples. In Bosnia, the conflict emerged in the name of religious nationalism between Christianity and Islam. In Ireland, between Catholic and Protestantism. In Algeria, Egypt, Iran, a conflict occurs within the Islamic worldview between those who claim identity based on the pure, orthodox, impure, westernized, secularized Islam. On the basis of religious ultra-nationalism in India, we find a prototype example such as Ram Janambhoomi movement and its consequences of communalism in India. It occurs based on the age-old ethnic or religious hostility under such Uttar Pradesh in Gujarat. Ignatieff journey to document these extraordinary expressions of nationalism in the tense political climate of Croatia, Serbia, Kurdistan, Germany, Ukraine, Quebec, and Northern Ireland. It is thus a common sense among the Western scholars and its intellectual representatives to consider nationalism only in the language of politically dangerous, that is, was opposed to liberalism, progressive secular democracy. Correct to his attempt, Michael Ignatieff concluded his journey and captured the passions of this new nationalism. By way of summing up, he simply defined it as a the return of the repressed. Here, Ignatieff's assertions has reflected the typical in the language of the Freudian psychoanalysis. Although these elements of truth in Ignatieff, he claims only nationalism, but the scope of his observations largely remain within the superficial aspects of nationalism.
It's good that Dr. Heroka has also come up with these write-ups. I have few books with me also. Sometime when I get little time I read. And these are the books which is showing us the way where we have come and where we are going. Today here, I want to frankly share that unless we change our mindset, we are killing ourselves, we are taking back ourselves backward, and we are fighting for nothing. I want to thank all of you, and lastly, I congratulate Dr. Heroka Yeptomi, and I wish him all the best.